This is part 2 of my presentation about Ethan Waters' book, and I'm going to go from the middle. This time, I want you to notice how I do the interactive part, because I think having some kind of activity is very good. You can also notice that my slides are a little bit too full of material because I did it in a hurry. If I had more time, I would make fewer words on the slide because it's easier to see, but I'm going to go with what I have. So do you remember we were talking about anorexia, the disease of wanting to slim, and how anorexia came to Hong Kong from the USA. Anorexia started to increase in Hong Kong in the 1990s. Some actresses started to have anorexia and want to be very thin. And a teenage girl died in Hong Kong. And after she was on the news, many girls had anorexia. Ethan, the author of our book, interviewed a doctor who is a specialist in anorexia from Hong Kong. And that doctor said, well, I don't think originally anorexia was the same in Hong Kong. In the beginning, when there was a Hong Kong girl who was trying not to eat, she had an unhappy love story. And so she was depressed because of her love being rejected. But actually, she didn't really want to be thin. That wasn't part of it. She was not trying to look beautiful, and she was not trying to be in control. She was just unhappy. So Dr. Lee said, the American way of understanding anorexia is not correct for Hong Kong people. And what was worse, it seemed that after the Hong Kong people started to read or see the image of anorexia, many people started to become sick because they knew about it. So Ethan interviewed doctors in Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, and Japan, and he found the same idea. People in that country didn't have the problem which the USA diagnostic manual, the textbook, said that they had. But the USA continued to sell the medicine which was used to treat the illness written in the diagnostic manual. Ethan Waters researched some other illnesses, and so these were the other things that he went into deeply. Post-traumatic stress disorder, which is the illness which soldiers feel after they have been in the war. And also if somebody has been in an earthquake, they might have post-traumatic stress disorder. Schizophrenia, which is 2 personalities in Zanzibar in Africa. And we'll focus a little more on depression in Japan. Ethan thought maybe people do not need medication so much. Maybe the way of living was better before they got the medication and ideas from the USA. So let's take a minute. Here's an activity to think about the words which you associate with depression in English or utsu in Japanese. You can choose whichever you like. So pause the show and do the activity. So a psychologist asked students from Japan and the USA to do this, to associate words. The Japanese students, she asked to associate word with utsu. The USA students, she asked, what do you associate with depression? She was in Hawaii, so she had people from both countries in her class. Look at the words on the next slide. Can you guess which were from Japanese students and which were from USA students? The ones on the right or the ones on the left, which were from the Japanese, which were from the USA. Comparing words associated with depression by American students and with Utsu by Japanese. Now, what the researchers said, let's just read through the words: rain, dark, worried, grey, suicide, solitude, exam, depressing, disease, tiredness. Do you think that's the American students list or the Japanese students list? Here's list number 2: sad, lonely, down, unhappy, moody, low, gloom, failure, upset, anxious. We've got some words in blue. Before I tell you the answer, can you see something special about the words in blue? They're emotion words. They're all words about internal emotions, emotions inside us. So which group do you think associated depression with something which is inside us? Was it the American students or the Japanese students? So it was a woman, I think. Oh my God, I've missed out the answer. Here we are. Here's the answer. Many of the words associated with by American students were about internal emotional states, but many of the Japanese students' words were about things in the environment. So that was a finding by a researcher called Junko Tanaka Mutsumi, and it's in that book, which I've been reading. It's in the 1970s. So that part of the presentation was about how to do an interactive activity. I thought it would be good to focus on the interactive activity, just so you can see what I mean. I also put in some discussion questions later on as well. I'm going to stop the video now, and I think I'll make part 3 in which I answer the other questions, and I'll also show you my discussion questions. So see you in the next video.